What does it do, you too? Welcome in, welcome back. I'm Scotty, and this is another episode of Scotty Says. And today's episode is a quick video tribute to pay honor, recognition given to a feat that has been accomplished by my St. Louis Cardinals. And full disclosure, I grew up in St. Louis. There's something there in the water. It's in the air. Baseball, it's something about it. It draws you in from an early age. We love the crack of the bat, the game, the strategy, the pace. It's just endemic to St. Louis. And we love our Cardinals. And no matter where in the world I've traveled, I've always kept close watch on how my Redbirds are doing throughout the months of summer. And I've been a Cardinal fan since my earliest memories. But this year, something has happened that has never been done before. And it's worthy of special recognition, especially considering the fact that the national media types, they don't seem to notice. Why? They just ignore it as if it isn't there. Funny how that works. I'll bet you if a New York market team was doing what the Redbirds are doing, I bet you we'd hear about it nightly on SportsCenter. Be it the Mets or the Yankees, I bet you. But again, this is a small digression because the point of this video is not to talk about the negligence of the national sports media, but to pay honor to the Redbirds, the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, as I mentioned, my love for baseball and the Redbirds goes way back. I remember as a little kid trying to master the art of pitching, torquing the wrist and the grip on the ball and the seams, and playing Little League and on up, listening to the Cardinal broadcasts. And I became enamored with the history of the Redbirds. You know, this is a team that stretches back well over 100 years, the franchise. And the history is decorated with legendary ball players and teams. The great Rogers Hornsby, one of the greatest baseball players of all time. The Cardinal. The Gas House Gang, that Frankie Frisch, Dizzy Dean era. The 60s. Championship teams in the 60s. Bob Gibson and Lou Brock. Kurt Flood. Into the 70s when they didn't win so much. But they had that flair. Memorable characters like Bake McBride. But it wasn't really until the 80s when you could almost say the modern era of St. Louis Cardinals baseball got underway. And that really kicked off with Whitey Herzog, the White Rat. And that team built for speed in the old Busch Stadium. Vince Coleman and Lonnie Smith, Ozzie Smith, and Terry Pendleton, and just on and on. Jack Clark. And this team ended a drought, a World Series drought that dated from 1967 to 1982. The world champion St. Louis Cardinals beat Milwaukee in 1982. And from there, the Cardinals have just always been relevant, always have been. In fact, they only trail the New York Yankees in terms of overall championships won. And so from the championship in 82 to the teams in 85 and 87, the Don Denkinger heartbreak. Oh, if only there was replay. In the 80s, the Cardinals would have another championship, the one that Denkinger robbed. The umpire at first base, who gave KC a title, took it away, snatched it away from the Redbirds. And then that morphed on into the Tony La Russa era and the emergence of La Machine, Albert Pujols, another legendary Cardinal. And more championships, 06 and in 11. But it's been 10 years since the Cardinals have won it all. And over the past few years, while still playing competitive baseball and making the playoffs, there hasn't been anything special, no flair, no magic really. And that's how this year was going along. Creeping along, playing 500 ball. In fact, into September, after 140 games, the team was 71 and 69, 2 games over 500. They were a 500 team, had been all year long. And it was confounding because I looked at the team, at the lineup, at the potential there. All the gold gloves, all the hitting stars, the what looked to be substantial pitching depth. And yet, the team just went along at a 500 clip. Win 2, lose 1, win 1, lose 3, win 2, win 3, lose 2, just 500. And I even thought, what is missing with these guys? What's wrong? And from top to bottom, I looked at it. I call Mike Schilt Popeye. I don't know why he strikes me as Popeye. But he does. I said, is it Popeye? Is he not sufficiently motivating the team? I looked at the front office, and I mean, Mozeliak, he's got a track record of success. You can't really argue with John Mozeliak. The man has been proficient and quite successful over a stretch of time. But I looked at them at the trade deadline, and I'm like, Mozeliak, what are you doing? He did nothing. There's nothing. They added no hitting. They added no speed. In fact, all they added were 2 old lefties, Lester and Happ. I'm like, that's all you got, Mozeliak, at the trade deadline, Lester and Happ? And on they went, plodding along, 500. Uninspiring. Confounding, really. What's wrong with these guys? September clicks in. Same thing. Plodding along. And then, after 140 games in a 162 game schedule, just 22 left, at 71 and 69, with just 22 to play, at just about 500 as you've been all year, and trailing several other teams for the final wild card spot, which seemed completely out of reach, something inexplicable happened. The team just clicked into gear, just caught fire. I'm pulling out all my sports analogies. They found themselves. They took off. They launched. out of nowhere. And they haven't lost since. For the last 2+ weeks now, winning day in, day out, all sorts of ways. Slamming home runs. Great defense. Outstanding starting pitching. Lights out relievers. Closers out of the pen. They're winning with small ball. They're double stealing. They're scoring on sacrifice flies from second base. Beating out infield hits. Swinging bunts. Not trotting, digging, beating them out. Scoring with 2 outs. Scoring early, scoring late. Any which way you want to do it. 16 in a row. And 16 in a row, my friends, is a St. Louis Cardinals franchise record. The record for the franchise was 14. Way back when, 1935, back in there. Now, as I mentioned, the team's been around since the 1880s. Way back before people who looked like me could play. In fact, the St. Louis Cardinals were one of the original National League teams. And they were originally the St. Louis Brown Stockings in around 1880 or so. That was a thing, the Stockings. I believe the original National League team was the Cincinnati Red Stockings. Cincinnati Reds. And the St. Louis Brown Stockings shortened their name eventually to St. Louis Browns. Which then, for a brief period of time, right around the turn of the century, they changed their name from the St. Louis Browns to the St. Louis, wait for it, the St. Louis Perfectos. The St. Louis Perfectos. And they remained such, thusly, for the next several years, until, so the story goes, a woman attending a game remarked about how extraordinarily colorful that cardinal striping was on the Perfectos jerseys. And it just so happened that this woman was seated next to a sports writer in town who picked up on her phraseology and wrote that the Perfectos were a team trimmed in cardinal. And a few years later, the name became official. The St. Louis Cardinals. And I gotta say, it's a lot better than the Perfectos. And there is something about those birds on the bat. That iconic logo. That historic, legendary franchise. Just quickly about this streak. It's not just that they won 16 in a row, but that they came out of nowhere with it, and that they did it in the most critical time of the season, of the year. They did it in September, in late September. As we speak now, we're going into the final weekend of baseball. And the Cardinal streak of 16 is alive and well and still running. How did they do it? With hitting? Yes, they've been smacking home runs like crazy. Slugging. Driving in runs, timely hitting, clutch hitting, refusing to lose. Oh, it's been something to watch. With pitching, yes. and Lester have been revelations. Just fantastic. And I'll tell you what, especially Lester, but both of them, they started off bumpy. They looked like old washed lefties that somebody had claimed off the retread pile. And I'm thinking, Mozilla. And now I'm thinking, Mozilla. How did he know? Happ and Lester have been just what the rotation needed. With defense, yes! Gold glovers all over the field. Some already with gold gloves. Others, the gold glove is coming up this year. Still others, the gold glove is just going to be in a season or two. The Cardinals have 80 defensive runs saved this year in 2021. And that metric places them first in all of Major League Baseball. Their defense may be their most impressive component. And the base running and the hitting and the pitching are all impressive. But that defense is top shelf. And I mentioned Popeye. I tip my cap to Popeye. Mike Schilt, there was a period there around game 120, 130 where I started thinking, you know what? They need to look at replacing the manager. That's gotta be where you go with this underachieving bunch of 500 talented players. Now, I'm like, will you give Mike Schilt an extension, please? Lock Popeye up for a few years. I like Popeye. I mean, during losing streaks, he looks a little non-phased, nonplussed. He's sort of, I like a little more fire in my manager typically. And so he lost it during the win streak on that pop-up double play. That was remarkable. And the ump's blown call. Oh boy, Popeye lost his mind. The front office, John Mozeliak, I tip my cap to you. The guy knows what to do. He knows which strings to pull, which buttons to push and not to push. And so now that just brings us to the last question. What does this all mean in terms of the playoffs? Can this team really be Cinderella and go from 500 and out of the last wild card spot to the World Series? What we know is the Cardinals will have a one-game play-in with either the Dodgers or Giants. It looks very much like it'll be the Dodgers in LA. Anything can happen, but the Dodgers are the best team money can buy. We all know that. They're the defending world champions. And were it not for the just extraordinarily remarkable out-of-nowhere season by the Giants, the Dodgers would have the best record in baseball. Amazingly, because of the Giants, the Dodgers are the wild card. And they might just run into a buzzsaw. We'll see. Because you know they're going to throw Scherzer in a winner-take-all wildcard game. Can the Redbirds stay hot into the playoffs? You know, when the temperature starts dropping, sometimes those bats cool off too. The pitching gets real good. The pressure, the lights are on. And so we'll see. Usually teams that go on late streaks, winning streaks, don't end up winning it all. If you just look at the historicals. But that's why I love baseball, because you could run off to a 15-game lead in July, and in September you might be right back in the middle of the pack. It's a long season. It is a marathon. that's why they play the games. Because I remember in '04, the Cardinals were the best team in baseball by record. I think they won 104, 106 games? They got swept in the World Series. 2 years later, the team won 83 games, barely squeaked in as a wild card, and won it all. So, you tell me, with my heart, I want to see the Birds go all the way. Wham! But whatever happens from this point forward, however long the streak goes on or doesn't, whatever the playoff outcomes or not, to the 2021 St. Louis Cardinals, the Redbirds, I say to you, jobs well done, gentlemen. Thank you for watching. Scotty says, please share, like, subscribe, comment below. Let me know what you guys think. I love baseball. Do you? All right. Until next time, one love.